It's Krista here with you again today. And today I want to get back to the subject of narcissism and abuse cycles that happen within families or relationships that you might be in, or possibly a job that you're dealing with, or people or acquaintances outside of you that you're not quite sure how to deal with. A lot of times in here I do talk mostly about relationships and family, though, although it can pertain to anything else that you're dealing with outside those realms, as it pertains to people in general. So I was really listening to a lot of Luminous Star this morning. I love her videos. They're so informative, and just the education that she brings is so paramount and needed today in our culture and society, as narcissism really runs rampant in people of all walks of life. And what's really amazing is when you do find yourself in relationships and for some reason you find yourself still in one that just seems to come to an end sooner or later, and you just can't find that happy relationship or that happy medium where both people can stay happy enough and do not become stable enough to sustain a regular relationship and keep up the work to keep it alive and flowing, where everybody is content. So again, I'm talking not just about narcissism, but basically dysfunctional families in general. Dysfunctional families are very, very rampant as well. They break down part of at least that we know so far, like 50%, maybe on the upper on that, where we've got a long way to go yet with all of our own healing processes and understanding about how and why we can make it better, and how we can heal ourselves and other people can heal. A lot of learning that I do these days is even as I start joining support groups and things, and I begin talking with people about my own and helping give information out, where in a lot of places, cities and rural communities, where not a lot of information is given out yet, because it's really coming new yet. And when you go step into a therapist, maybe when you want to deal with your own traumas or grief work or something like that, where they really don't know and have learned yet in their books that what narcissistic personality is, or cluster B personality, where you're dealing with people out there that might have mental health issues and disorders that just wreak havoc and chaos with not only their own lives, but as we connect with them and be with them, how they start doing that in our lives as well. And it just creates this just torment and ultimate suffering pertains from these, where we are no longer just helping these people and trying to help them and help them change and everything like that, and we think that we can fix them, as codependents do, as to where all of a sudden our lives start going out of control and our lives start crashing around us, just because of when you're connected to these people and you stay connected to them and you're dealing with them every day, and all of a sudden you stop being happy and you start feeling maybe you have like an underlying anger that you grew up with, because maybe you were in a family of dysfunctional people where either the man or the woman ruled in your home with an upper fist, even slightly and subtly, where they put on a really nice in the front, but behind closed doors, it was very strict and different, and it was like you were walking on eggshells, where you had to please, please, please everybody, and you didn't really have time for yourself to have your own thoughts or do what you really wanted to do. Maybe you grew up and now you have a job or are doing things where you're doing too much, and you just, maybe you're getting some kind of health problems because you're just running on overdrive all the time, and you don't have any time because maybe you're working too much or trying to be good enough, when inside you feel unworthy, and because we still are holding that place inside of ourselves. And when we're doing that, we really need to learn how to learn and heal and release that part of ourselves with understanding and knowledge as to finding support around us. As I give these videos, I've kind of taught about this. And as I come to a place inside of myself where we learn that in these relationships, sometimes we need to start pacing ourselves and limiting ourselves from not maybe revolving around that person anymore or that family, and kind of making more time for ourselves, so we are not calling them and constantly checking in with them if they're, you know, somebody super controlling and wants to know always where you're at or what you're doing, or saying that your job performance isn't good enough. Maybe calling with them less and start having your own life. Maybe finally finding a solace and peaceful place to live on your own, really starting to take the actions forward from that place, that first grief steps and recovery steps, where you are just learning, and you might be obsessed with learning all about these narcissists and what it is and the dynamics, and understanding that that doesn't have to be you anymore, and you don't have to live in that awful place where you often feel like gaslighted to the point where you feel crazy inside, and everybody's telling you you're crazy, and you finally think that you're a lunatic. You know, maybe these people have beat you down to a point where they tell you you're crazy, and they tell you that all these things are wrong with you every day. They're constantly criticizing you and saying that you're not doing good enough, you're not behaving like you should, behaving the way that they want you to, where you're constantly their servant, and it just goes round and round in circles, and where, you know, you might be in a relationship where you're very honeymooned at first, and just, you know, all these gifts are thrown at you, and you know, you're told that you're beautiful, and all of a sudden one day they stop telling you all those great things, and they start maybe ignoring you or putting you down all the time and making you feel like you're not even a human being, or that you just no longer feel comfortable in your skin, or with things that you used to think, or the way that you used to be, which was more happy and content. You feel like you're living a nightmare or a bad dream every day, where you get up and everything just hurts. I'm talking about narcissistic abuse, and also I'm talking about simple dysfunctional family units, where you might not have grown up in that, with that emotional connection that in a healthy relationship dynamic you should have gotten. So when you grow up, you live these lives where everything around you only meets you halfway. In every situation, you're only really met halfway. Maybe you really don't feel like you're getting that love that you deserve, but that is for a reason, because you probably aren't getting the love that you deserve. I know I often feel like that, but as I grow into more of a place where I can accept the fact and come out of that denial, I've learned recently that that when you reach that first point of recovery, where you keep learning about the narcissist, that it will come to a place one day where you stop doing that, And if you feel like you have to keep doing that and you feel like still stuck in that area, maybe start listening to less of those videos. Also, you have to be careful of like going into groups online or joining groups that they might be stuck in that area too, where they can't get over that woe is me victim mentality, where they're not putting what they know into action. They're staying in that point where they do not take action. That's where you keep staying at a victim act. Be careful. Take a break from that for a while if you have to, and start. What's really, 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 really ultimately important here above anything else is that you start taking care of you. Okay, yourself is essential. I think sometimes I'm going to kind of go a little bit out of range here, but even for the narcissist, and why that narcissist or cluster B is always so me, selfish, and everything has to revolve around him, is because he is so extreme. I'm talking about extreme low, like to the point where he has to center around himself to get that care all the time, because it is just such a low point. But that is where you have to leave them at, because like we want to so bad, and what we can become addicted to that, because we don't we want to help them come out of that, but we have to learn to leave them there, because they have to start learning on their own, just like a junkie or a bad addict or anything, that they finally have to reach that bottom before they can start taking care of themselves or come up from any of that. And that's the dangerous area. You want to avoid that area with them. That is why limiting contact and breaking that contact is so important for your own safety. I'm telling you this for a reason. Maybe I will do videos soon about how dangerous narcissists really can be, and how they can be destructive like a tornado, and anything in their path they will destroy as well. It's not like they really mean to. You do have to have a place of forgiveness for them, or you might never get over it. And for yourselves, and just an understanding that they are in a different realm of the world, and that yours is going to be higher than that, and is higher than that, and you need to stay in that safe place in order to grow. Okay, you don't want to stay in that miserable place. You need to grow. That's what humans are thriving to do. If they don't, they will keep self-sabotaging and not being happy. Okay, and also grabbing things out there anywhere that are not good as well, that are more sabotaging. Being a BPD, I really know a lot about that self-sabotage thing, but I'll get into that in a different video. Okay, so I'm talking about a little bit here about how we need to really do that. The second stage of recovery is when we start really when we can get to that space level of staying away from that person or that situation, or maybe taking that ultimate stand against that family that maybe you revolved around before. No matter how old that you are, when you start keeping that space, maybe not calling them every day, maybe making it a little bit more and more like you're over here and they're over there, and there is an actual boundary there. There's actual barriers and a boundary that can keep them so much from really harming you more, because this is a narcissistic, dysfunctional family I'm talking about. Even on a smaller degree and a larger degree, still, if you really want to get the recovery that you do deserve and get to that healthy stableness in your life where you are able to have a real, solid, stable relationship of any kind, and teach your kids to do the same, which is ultimately profound, that you really, a human really wants and needs. And what we're always striving for, it's just this natural part inside of us. Be proud of yourself for the steps that you've made so far. Give yourself a pat on the back, and a clap from me, of course, and my dog, Daisy. Yay! That you have really taken some steps so far, and an interest for yourself and what is really good and essential for you. And as you start entering the second stage, as I am doing as well now, is really start focusing on maybe learning, getting books and reading about boundaries, watching videos about boundaries. If you start finding, at this point, you start, learning more assertiveness and how to stand up for yourself, even when you run into people like at the gas station or just on an everyday basis or at work and stuff, where they're like seeming to throw a lot of paperwork at you and giving you too much, instead of running out of juice and running really fast to get orders done, or when somebody cuts in front of you in line or just says something rude to you, that you can really stand up and say, maybe like, I don't really have enough time to do all that paperwork. You're going to have to give me at least another few days on this project. Or just standing up for yourself, asking for more time, or compromising so it will be healthier for you, and that you're still getting the work done that you need to do. And when you are in situations where you are being bullied or being rude, someone is being extreme rude to you, how you can stand up and say, hey, I'm okay, and I'm not going to stoop to your level and fight with you or be angry, and I'm going to respect that you are a human being, and you're going to respect that I'm a human being, and I'm going to walk on, and just, maybe say something like, you know what, I'm actually a person here, and you are going to get out of my way, or just whatever it takes, where you don't get stuck in that survival state that you're always at right now, because you are still coming out of that CPTSD and PTSD, where narcissists do constantly put you into this survival state where you want to fight or flight, or you freeze up or whatever, where you can move beyond that and start to practice boundaries more. I love to start talking about boundaries, and it's just so fun to practice, although it still is extremely hard sometimes, because there are so many bullies out there every day that you will run into, and probably all your life, but it does become easier to handle these situations. And what's really amazing at part of recovery step 2 is that you start bringing in and attracting more people around you. I feel like I'm starting to find some friends again, which I lost a lot of my friends during my drug use and through my narcissistic relationships, where all those friends, I was too scared to join them anymore, and I just got to this place where they kept me very isolated and away from people, and even my own family and my own children, which they oftentimes do to get you right where they want you, so they can control you and keep you like a captive. I'm going to talk about a little something deeper now, is that there is a darker side. I mean, if y'all think that maybe, it's just like silly and it's just a game they play and you play it with them, it's not. It's really not. I don't want to scare anybody, but if you listen to any other videos on narcissism, like Luminous has a really good one that I watched twice today, and it was about cults. And how within a narcissistic family or a relationship or whatever, a lot of times, or even at work, like a lot of times you often have this very manipulative boss or this really manipulative person that everybody revolves around. That boss punishes, criticizes, and keeps you in a place with this dangling carrot where they promise things and then they don't ever really follow through fully. Maybe you're not getting the paycheck that you deserve and you're running your butt off and doing a lot of hours and you're not making enough money. I'm talking about this in my own life as well, as I run Amish out here for a living. I'm a taxi service, and I often learn and find a lot of this as I'm doing my work out there. Often, what happens sometimes is that they really want to like run you to death. Sometimes I'll get a run where, even though it might be a little bit better money, but they want you to drive all night with no sleep for the next 2 days and drive. And just things like that. This is also happens in cults too, where they overwork, and oftentimes that's kind of like a form of neglect and things like that. Maybe I get a lot of times I get on my job people that ignore. That's another manipulative tactic that families can use against you, and things like that. That they can ignore you and make you feel invisible and invaluable. Like invisible or whatever. This is a tactic that they use to keep you down, and because you are not getting any kind of control when people are acting like you are unworthy and they are better than you. This is a source of supply that they are gaining from you to keep them powerful. And if you rise above that, man, that really messes with their ego. And they usually go into like a narcissistic rage and use more ways to punish you. This upends the fear factor inside of us and keeps us more at bay, and that's how we further stay their victims. So I think that a lot of safer way, instead of for them to punish you more, is to again limit yourself from these people. Maybe start looking for a different job, a different profession. As I'm practicing these a lot, and I want to I'm looking into something else, because I also still work for with my narcissistic family, because they are doing the same job as me now. When I started doing this, oftentimes what happens, even with a relationship, as I've watched my mother and father all their lives, that my mom would go into her art and start selling her art and a way just to gain her own money, and then my dad would follow her into that job, and then he started doing crafts with her, and then they started this business together. Although I did learn how to, the good side of it was that I learned how to have my own business and be an independent boss, but still, I'm still not getting that independency, because they will often offer you things with their money or things like that and keep you dependent on them in another way. Like my father often offers me one of their vans to use. But the thing about that, though, is that you can probably still, sometimes, it depends on how extreme that narcissistic family is abusing you. You take little stuff away from them, and it's not good to say to their face, like, you are a narcissistic, control freak, and I really, just to their faces and stand up to them like that, because that brings more punishment. What you need to do is draw yourself away, maybe be nice to them and act respectfully as you can, but maybe start saying no more to their needs. As you start cutting away from this cycle, it will probably make them angrier. But as you start saying you're doing your own thing, you don't have time because you got something else to do, even if you have to lie about it or whatever. So they're not getting that you're revolving around their world anymore. Just to start going to your support groups and things like that. Maybe they start ignoring you, not giving you the time of day or whatever, and are taking things away from you and things like that. The thing of it is, you still do have to go on, and to get into that second phase, you need more limited contact, and you need to start joining, taking care of yourself more, joining things around you that are supportive in what you are going through during this time, domestic centers, domestic support groups. Also, if you don't have one, join your AA, NA support group. That also helps with codependency. and things like that. They might not know every single little thing about narcissistic abuse yet, but we are all learning slowly, and the more information that goes out, the better. Because so many people are suffering in these situations today, and I'm just glad to put these videos out for you all. I know this was a longer video today. I tried to keep them short, but you know, I really do wish you luck in all areas, and as we start getting more support out there, we start attracting better friends to us. We have to start learning the red flags of these types of people. I will do in another video. But you know, when we do start dating again and meeting more people out there, you know, start saying no and keeping yourself safe from getting back into another one, and also not to be hoovered back into the old ones that you were in before. Safety is first. That's what you have to keep focusing on. And you know, what's cool is that the world will bring you what you want. And stop being so afraid that you are going to keep getting into those types of relationships and things and drawing those things to you, because what magically happens is the universe starts sending out things and people that are more like you and not like you used to be. If you watch any of my videos on like symmetry, synchronicity and things like that, and coincidence, where you start running into the right people instead, really starts happening for you. So don't be too worried. Don't worry about your future too much, because that only causes more fear and anxiety. And don't get back into your past too much, because the past only brings more depression and pain. Start being more present, focused, and centered, and start taking those actions that will give you more satisfaction and fulfillment in the future. Thank you for listening today, and have a gorgeous day.